Hey guys, Parfax here, and today we have some pretty insane news coming soon to New World. All right, let's get started. So I know I haven't posted a video in quite a long time. I had some IRL stuff going on, mixed with a couple other things, and honestly haven't been that into playing New World. But I've been getting back into it after my break and after doing a lot of IRL stuff. And today we had a massive return to Eternum, Forged in Eternum video. I'll have the link in the description. We'll actually show you some clips from it. Well, normally this isn't something that I particularly care for that much. A lot of it is stuff that it doesn't really pertain to me. It was a lot of information we already know. But today they had a few little snippets that I think you guys are going to absolutely want to know, whether this is PvE or PvP. They talked in quite length about a few things coming very soon to Eternum. All right, we're going to go over to that video. We're going to show you a few clips, and I think you guys are going to be really excited. All right, this first clip talks about armor changes. This is going to start kind of going into a pretty decently long segment where they talk about things like armor, PvP, PvE, the meta for wars, and a lot of other things. So listen to this, and then we're going to talk about it right after.
Will the dev team make further rollback changes to armor type, light, medium, heavy? Are they looking at the feedback from previous changes?
Yeah, so I think equip load in our game and the balance between equip load is something that has, evolved over time. If you remember, heavy meta was the thing, at the start of the game. Obviously now we're in a totally light meta era.
If you guys didn't know, you didn't play at the very beginning, it was 100% heavy. Everybody was playing heavy, and you were basically unkillable on point. It was a pretty slow grind to kill somebody. Resilient was absolutely crazy. But yeah, at the very beginning, it was heavy, but it was more for exploits. Or I shouldn't say exploits, but a broken game mechanic than anything else.
We are definitely aware of it. We are going to be making some changes, and in fact, they're coming very soon to a PTR near you. We're going to be making some changes, and the main gist of it is right now, the idea is that light armor needs to be strong, like do a lot of damage. But the thing is, you can be in light armor, do all that damage, and still feel relatively safe due to certain perks and things like that. So that's really what we're going to tackle. We're going to try to make you have to take that risk. If you want the extra damage from light, you're going to have to be able to take some risks. So some of those perks are now going to be based on the armor of the character. So things like Resilient or Shirking Fort will be less strong if you're wearing light armor.
Will you address why we cannot have blue healing,
Okay, so we're going to get into this next little thing. But from what they're saying is all of your Shirking fortifications, your Resilient, all those main defensive stats are going to go based on your equip load. Now, I don't know if this is going to be the same with your offensive stats on weapons. They didn't really say that, but it's their attempt to really put you in heavy. Now, I haven't been playing light that much because mainly it just hasn't been as good. It's still fine in OPR because you can kind of get around. But when it comes to wars and stuff like that, there's not a ton of people in light armor. You have your bows and your muskets and your life staff in there. The one thing I think this is going to do very well is it is going to hopefully make healers a little bit more killable. Healers are very unkillable. I would have liked to have seen them touch dodging and stuff like that. Now, I hope what they don't do is make like Shirking fortification better and heavy than it already is, because I think defenses are extremely high once you get the gear right now. So it'd be nice if the current Shirking fortification Resilient is equal to when you have heavy armor, is basically what it is now. Medium armor, maybe it's like 10% worse. And then in light armor, maybe it's like 20% worse or something like that. I think that'd be a nice little change. And maybe make, some of the light armor used a little bit more killable. We have some bigger changes coming to one of the weapons you absolutely hate, But when we get there, we will talk about it. Next is a huge quality of life that I was actually just talking with a few people about, and we're like, it's never coming. But they're about to talk about healing circles, ally healing circles, enemy healing circles, basically just having the ability to see different ones. All right, here we go.
Oblivion ice storms during PvP in wars.
Sure. On that very same PTR Dave's referring to, we will, and you'll be able to play it. And we're so excited for this. It's one of the features we've been wanting to do for a while, and I think it's going to make it's going to change the way war goes for a lot of people. And it's going to change a lot of
OPR.
PvP,
is
OPR.
also,
Yeah,
it's going to be great.
It's huge, and very excited for this change to come in. We've already been playing it internally, and it feels really good.
It's also a good plug for the PTR, which is the public test realm, for anybody who's hearing that word for the first time, that when that does come up and we do announce those changes, which we do publicly ahead of the download, that you should hop on, and we'll try to get our community team to run some wars so that you can try it out. They're usually happy to do that. It's just us that need to get it together, and so we will get it together so that we can get that tested. But
Yeah,
for sure, join the PTR.
And we'd love feedback on it, right? It's takes a lot of people to test war and OPR, and so like as you're playing it, if you see problems, let us know.
Yep.
Roadmap seems to
So we are getting circles that are different for enemy and ally. This is something we have been, well, kind of screaming for since the beginning of the game, and it is coming very soon. Now, they don't specifically say the date. They do say very soon, but we kind of get a little bit of insight a little bit later down the road that it seems to be coming in February. So that's just a couple weeks away. I don't know if the update is coming out in February, because we know we are getting the update with the leaderboards in February, but we are getting an update in February. I'm hoping these changes make it, but if you guys have sat through the video so far, trust me, there are even better things coming in this video, so make sure you stick around, and of course, like always, hit the like and subscribe button. I know I haven't posted a whole lot lately. We have some build videos coming out soon, and it's gonna be a blast, so make sure you do that. Now, let's talk about the roadmap. As you guys know, and you can see here by the question, there wasn't a whole lot of PvP stuff on the roadmap. It was pretty much all PvE and one kind of quality of life with cross-server OPR, and they're gonna talk about it right here.
be extremely PvE centric. Is this the direction that the game plans to take continuing forward? Out of the 9 planned content in the roadmap, only 1 is PvP focused, cross-server OPR, and that happens to be a quality of life feature.
Yeah, so when we say 9 planned, it's 9 announced. There's a lot of work going on in the game. So to answer the question really directly, no, the direction is not we're just a PvE game. We have a lot of conviction around supporting our PvP players. And there is significant work in 2023 going toward that. I'm not going to get super specific right now. We will in about a month, though. We'll have a lot more to share on it. And like I said, we just mentioned a PvP feature that's going to show up on the PTR. I wouldn't be surprised to see more over the next several months.
Yeah, and the combat balance changes we talked about, that was the equip load is one, but there's a number of them, and it's going to dramatically affect PvP. You know, things like the musket will likely be in our sights also.
Okay, don't worry, we're going to listen to that part too. But as you can see here, they say there's PvP stuff coming down the road. There's a PvP feature coming soon. I don't know if this is just leaderboards. Maybe it is the practice war. I'm not 100% sure. Now, I don't know if they should even maybe they put the practice wars in for just a couple times a day during prime time. I think that could be a good thing, but I don't know if there's enough people playing on some of these smaller servers, but I was, of course, be happy if they did put in practice wars. This will help a lot of people get in there and practice wars for the first time. I think the bigger issue when it comes to PvP at the moment, especially in OPR, is just balancing. They need to find a way to put the same amount of healers. It doesn't matter if you have 30 bows or 30 greatswords or 30 whatever. They just need to find a way to split them up just evenly. Most OPR matches are won by however many 5 stacks are there. So, you know, if one team has 2 5 stacks, the other team only has 1 or doesn't have any at all, then the team with 2 5 stacks win, and they pretty much run it straight down your throat until they get to your spawn point, and then you sit in spawn point, and the score ends up being about 1,000 to 100, 200, maybe 300. So they really got to figure out a way to balance it. I don't want to see them go to a solo queue, which is something ESO did, which did actually help their battleground system. I think that would be a very good benefit here, but I think they just need to find a way to balance teams. I don't think it is an issue with balancing in the game. I don't think everybody's like bow PR, but if you have all the bows on your team, you just lose anyway. It's more about bruisers and healers than it is anything else. If you have, 2 more healers than the enemy team and you have some bruisers, then you're gonna win. That's just kind of the way it is. And it's mainly because people don't want to play healers that much. And bruiser feels really bad to play most of the time without a healer. So we're gonna get some more balance changes. They're gonna talk about it right here. So get ready to be 90% of you will probably be happy. I don't know. There's 2 weapons they really talk about. And they talk about some PvE stuff here soon too. But we knew they were coming, guys and gals. And here's some nerfs.
A musket.
Oh, before we say it, there's something on here that I have been absolutely screaming for. You guys have been screaming for it to be nerfed. And it's on here. You guys probably know what it is. You guys are going to be ecstatic when they say it. But here we go.
Oh, the musket. Yeah,
so it'll be in
yeah.
our sights, so to
And
speak.
not the musket, something
Wow.
else.
That was
But I mean the
good,
musket
Dave.
too, but
How long have you been working on that one?
Well, speaking of that, does AGS see 80% of forum posts about musket and greatswords? Any plans for some balance? Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, we do see it, and I think the musket. We did try to take action in December with our changes to the damage fall off. It obviously did not achieve the result we wanted. We're aware of that. We are going to be taking some more drastic measures in the upcoming PTR again. The 2 main things we're going to be doing is, 1, we're going to be looking at the accuracy of it and how that works and sort of the gameplay around that.
now I don't know exactly. They're going to talk a little bit more about it here in a second. But if they don't make it hit scan, people are first off going to love it, and second of off going to hate it. You're going to see they don't specifically talk about hit scan in general, but this is something. The problem with the musket isn't even the damage it does. Now, there's something there's a problem with it, and it's kind of a problem with a lot of things, and they talk about that here in a second, so you guys probably already know what I'm talking about, but we'll talk about that when it comes up. But the problem is there's no counterplay. If a bruiser's going off, the counterplay is you lock him up with CC. If he has a pocket healer, then you go after the healer. And sometimes, you may feel like maybe they just have way better gear, or maybe they're just way better than you, or maybe the team comp just can't do it, but there's actually counters to it. With musket, the only counter to a musket is it's just you have a better musket. So, I mean, and I guess that's technically a counter, but even then you can put yourself in spots where if you're paying attention, you just don't die. You can roll off, you get hit one time, you roll off. Now, if you have like 2 or 3 people and they all have muskets, and they all powder burn or power shot, try to kill them all in one instance in 1 second. It takes a lot of coordination, but the problem with musket is the lack of counterplay. I don't think it's the damage it does. I think it's really the lack of counterplay. Now, they did talk about like resilient and stuff being less effective, and that will really, really hurt muskets because, especially as a bow player, you can, if you time your abilities correct, a lot of times either get them almost dead or dead really quickly. And this is going to make it, hopefully, if they make resilient not as good for them, even better for that. But let's talk about musket greatsword and the one other thing.
I think it'll require players to become a little more in aim to hit their shots. So I think that'll
stationary.
a little more stationary. So that'll be big. The other thing is, I think mortal empowerment, if you're not familiar with it, is another big cascading factor.
Button item right there.
So it would not surprise me to see some nerfs to that perk in combination with the changes to the musket.
Yeah, and I think it hurt the musket. We made a few mistakes and an exploit got stuck in that only really affected the musket. So it exaggerated a situation that already wasn't great, which is, apologies for that. And we're going to be more careful going forward.
Can you discuss how customer support works?
Okay, so Mortal Empowerment. Now, honestly, I've never been a fan of this ability in general. Do I have rings with it on it? Of course I do. It's way too strong on bow, musket. Heck, I even have it for greatsword. I have a hardy slashing Mortal Empowerment ring that I crafted and kept for myself. So It is something that I actively use, but is something that I actively think is horrible for the game because it promotes you playing like, well, a little bitch. It promotes you just never ever prioritizing what's right, just prioritizing not dying. It is something that I don't like. I hope they nerf it into the ground. As somebody who has really good Mortal Empowerment gear, I hope it's gone. I don't think it's very good for the game. I don't actually even like the PvP perks in general. I would rather them either be augmentations to your gear or be something that just isn't in the game. Just have generic perks. But they are going down that road, and they even talk a little bit more about going even more down that road here in a minute. But yeah, so Mortal Empowerment getting nerfed. They didn't really specifically talk about Greatsword, but I believe I saw somewhere else where they did say Greatsword is getting nerfed. But Musket, hopefully, the one thing they did say is you had to be stationary to fire it, which kind of promotes the bad gameplay that we don't like. So we'll have to see what all that entails, but it's supposed to be pretty drastic. So we will see. And I look forward to seeing the changes, especially I hope Mortal Empowerment is cut by over 50%. I do. I wouldn't mind if, no, I just, either that or you just take more damage, cut the stacks to 10 instead of 15. And then for every percentage damage you deal extra, you take extra damage. I would be kind of okay with that too. That way there's some counterplay and you just get like counter sniped. But yeah, so big changes coming there. Now we're going to skip through this next one and we'll get to the next thing they talk about. I don't think you guys really care too much about customer support. All right, we're not going to really talk a whole lot about this. We're not even really going to play the clip here, but they just ask about future revamped zones. They say they're not going to have every zone revamped, but they do this year. They feel very confident to have their full level 1 to 60 revamp in. So that's coming. If you don't know, it's only up to 25, but they're going to have the rest of it in there. We're not going to go over what they say. It's not terribly important, but just note they plan on doing a lot of revamps soon and this year. All right, this next question is a pretty big one, and I hinted at it a little bit earlier. But
have you considered separating weapon stats for PvP and PvE? Right now, it's not working trying to balance for both when a lot of PvP changes make weapons bad for PvE, like what's happened with the Fire Staff. Separating stats could mean weapons being actually good for PvE, and more frequent PvP balance changes to prevent a stagnant meta without affecting PvE.
Now, this is where I originally thought that if they did basic abilities, like take, for instance, the Lasbo, Keen, Vicious, Enchanted. If instead of putting the PvP perks and PvE perks, first off, I wish they'd just put them on a trophy, like PvE for the Angry Earth trophy. It was just all the PvE perks, Ward, Bane, etc. Right? That's what I would rather prefer, and then just have generic gear. And I would like that way more. But they're going to talk a little bit here about Banes and stuff like that. Now, like I said, I'm not a big fan of the PvP stuff. And they talk a little bit about possibly separating the two. But if you had like an augmentation system, you could really tweak the numbers without tweaking PvP. The problem with the game system right now is, for instance, they want to make ranged weapons, and they're going to talk about that here, better in PvE. Well, like the Fire Staff, for instance, or Ice Gauntlet or Void Gauntlet, if they make those better for PvE, it is almost impossible to not make them incredibly insane for PvP. So where I think this is a good idea to separate PvP and PvE, I think there's ways for them to do it without having to actually completely separate them. But this is honestly, like any game that's PvE/PvP, this is always something you're going to struggle with. So let's see what they say.
Very pointed question, but a good one. Yes, it's super difficult to balance, obviously, PvE and PvP together. It's something we're working on, and we actually do have some tools already in our tool belt, right? Like things like Resilient, are PvP only. We have the Banes, which are PvE only. And I think we're going to be digging into those even more as a first attempt at this. I think the perfect example is, I think a lot of people say, hey, ranged weapons aren't viable in high-level content, PvE content, like mutators or things like that. And there's some truth to that. I think one of the things we're going to be trying out, again in the PTR, please come try it out, is making the Banes for ranged weapons even more powerful as a way to sort of amp up the viability of those weapons. That, and we'll also be removing those elemental resistances from the mutations, which really hurt the ice and fire staff users. So I think that's step one, and I think this is a hard problem. It's something we're looking at. We're going to continue to investigate. I think we are going to we're moving more and more to a world where we separate them, but I think doing that in a holistic manner is going to take a while. But these are steps in the right direction, I think.
But I think a statement for the community is we agree with you that something needs to be done here, for sure. Yeah. And if you wonder why I keep looking down, a dog keeps running.
So, yeah, so they're going to try to make ranged better in PvE. Now, of course, you know, a fire staff should not be able to deal the same amount of damage as a hatchet or greatsword. And before you guys freak out in the comment section down below, any weapon that can play at range should not be able to do the amount of damage that a weapon that can play at melee, because you are just at, it's a high risk, high reward type of gameplay. Now you can say, well, with Shirking Fort and stuff like that, which is not as easy, it's not very good technically in PvE, but with like wards and stuff like that, you can be pretty much unkillable. And to some extent, I agree, because it's actually easier for a healer to heal a full group of melee versus a full group of range, because you can just put down 3 puddles on the ground, stack them on top of each other, and if everything's positioned properly, you can sit behind the boss and do it. As a ranged user, though, you don't have to worry about getting back cleaved, which almost every boss in the game has. So melee should definitely be better than ranged. Ranged, the thing that you kind of substitute is you get safety. You aren't nearly as susceptible to the boss damage. You can easily kite mobs. So you shouldn't do as much damage, but there definitely needs to be something done. I don't think that Ice Gauntlet will ever be something. It's just its kit. Same thing with the Void Gauntlet. There's just nothing really in their kit that is very damage based oriented. So unfortunately for a mage, you basically have Fire Staff. Maybe you can consider the Blunderbuss, but Rapier is your best damaging weapon. I know people don't consider that to be mage, even though, you know, even if you use Rapier, you still stack a ton of dexterity. But it is just something that, you know, hopefully we will get a little bit of a fix. But of course, the Fire Staff should not do anywhere close to the same amount. I shouldn't say close. The Fire Staff should not do as much damage as the Hatchet, Spear, Greatsword. Like, those should definitely those should definitely do more damage because they're melee, but not so significantly amount more damage. They just don't take a Fire Staff. So especially Bow too. Like Bow should be really good in Corrupted. Now you can take Bow in Corrupted dungeons, but they just don't do nearly as much damage as like Hatchet Greatsword. So we're gonna get some changes. That's basically it. They talk about the dog, and they talk about a couple other things that are incredibly important. But this is a huge update for New World coming. A lot of quality of life stuff. We'll see what the other PvP stuff that they are going to implement. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Like always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you like any New World content, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We're going to have a video that's not New World coming up here soon. It's a game that I played a while ago. You guys have probably heard of it. It's a crazy good game, but we will put out a little bit of a video about it here in the future. We have a couple PvE videos planned and hopefully a couple PvP videos planned as well. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe like always, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.